The stages of listening to Boise State Public Radio podcasts. Step 1, testing the waters. You tune into an episode or two. Nothing too serious. Step 2, you got a little hooked on one of those series like Extremely American or Scandalized, and now you're binging. No judgment, but you did listen to it in one day. Step 3, now you're subscribed to a feed. You get notifications to your phone every time there's a new daily episode of The Connector or Idaho Matters. I see where this is going. Step 4, you realize how much time you're spending with Boise State Public Radio podcasts and the fact that it doesn't cost you a dime. Step 5, you decide to step up and support your podcast listening because you can, because you want to, not because you have to. All right, now's the time, you podcast fan you. Go to boisestatepublicradio.org and click donate to support your love of Boise State Public Radio podcast listening today.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. It's Idaho's Daily News. Good morning. Happy holidays. Almost happy New Year's Eve. I'm George Prentice. Today we'll let you know how Idaho is ending the year jobs-wise. Those that have them, those that are looking for them. And we'll talk quite a bit about what's coming up tomorrow. Yeah, it's New Year's Eve, but there's a really big football game in the history of, Boise State's football program. And then there's this big potato that they're going to drop again tomorrow. It is Monday, the 30th of December, and here come today's stories. Idaho is ending the year with an uptick in new jobless claims. This past week saw the most new unemployment claims in nearly a year. Most of the new jobless claims coming from those who had been employed in the construction, manufacturing, and retail job sectors. Idaho is ending 2024 with a jobless rate of 3.7%. Come New Year's Day, the minimum wage is going up again, not in Idaho, but across the border in a couple of our neighboring states. In Montana, it goes up to $10.55 an hour. In Washington State, the minimum wage goes up to $16.16 an hour. Meanwhile, Idaho's minimum wage hasn't gone up in some time. The minimum wage in the Gem State remains at $7.25 an hour. That rate has not changed since 2009. Many of our region's economies depend heavily on recreation, but a new report confirms that's a risk, and those same communities are uniquely vulnerable to wildfires and/or floods. Murphy Woodhouse reports.
Researchers at Montana-based Headwaters Economics looked at so-called recreation-dependent counties, places where a large share of employment is tied to outdoor activities. What they found is that such counties are nearly twice as likely as others to face high risks from flooding and wildfires.
Not only does that mean that essential infrastructure and housing is at risk, but it also means that their economies and their livelihoods are even more at risk.
That's report author Megan Lawson, an economist at Headwaters. She says a key way to address these risks is to prepare beforehand by becoming more resilient to key disasters through stronger building codes and zoning regulations, as well as infrastructure improvements. But such efforts can be expensive, and many recreation-dependent communities also have limited resources for pursuing state, federal, or private funding. Lawson says funders need to take that reality into account. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Murphy Woodhouse.
The Boise State Broncos are on the eve of one of the biggest games in program history. Tomorrow's Fiesta Bowl will see the new college football playoff system featuring Boise State versus the formidable Penn State Nittany Lions. Here's head coach Spencer Danielson.
This is, the quarterfinal Fiesta Bowl. A lot of hype, a lot of buzz about the game, as there should be. And obviously their defense does a really good job taking the ball away. They do a great job with their front, creating pressure. We're very aware of the task at hand and how talented and well-coached they are. But I'm proud of our guys and what they've done to this point, and I know our guys will be ready for that challenge.
An interesting note, Boise State has played in 3 Fiesta Bowls. They won all 3. Penn State has played in 7 Fiesta Bowls, and they've won all 7. This will be the first time the two schools have met anywhere. Tomorrow, the Fiesta Bowl kicks off at 5:30 p.m. It will be televised on ESPN. We should also note that the Boise State men's basketball team will be back in action tomorrow. They're heading to Laramie to take on Wyoming. The Boise State women's basketball team returns to the hard court on New Year's Day. They will be home to take on Air Force. Tip-off on New Year's Day at Extra Mile Arena will be 6:30 p.m. Indeed, it is New Year's Eve tomorrow. Some will be in front of TV sets to watch the ball drop in Times Square. But in Boise, sponsors will again be hoping to draw people to Idaho's own unique New Year's event. Jamie Geary has a preview.
The 12th annual Idaho Potato Drop begins at 6 tomorrow evening at Cecil D. Andrus Park. It's free to the public and sponsored by several potato-centric businesses. There will be food vendors and live entertainment for those gathered to watch a giant potato dubbed the Idaho Glow-tato descend from the sky at midnight by crane to fanfare and fireworks. The Idaho New Year's Commission wants to make the Potato Drop the state's signature holiday event. Established on New Year's Eve of 2013, the celebration's first year consisted of a foam potato lowered from the top of the U.S. Bank building downtown. Now, the toughened fiberglass Glow-tato descends above the state capitol lawn. This event is part of a pantheon of themed objects lowered from the sky in cities on New Year's Eve. In Raleigh, North Carolina, a giant copper acorn is dropped. And in Plymouth, Wisconsin, a cheese wedge descends from the sky. If you attend, make sure to bring warm clothing. Temperatures are set to drop below freezing as the spud-lowering moment approaches. Jamie Geary, Boise State Public Radio News.
For some of us who may not make it to midnight tomorrow, the Boise Library brings us Noon Year's Eve. They'll have activities, crafts, a dance party, and yes, a countdown at noon when they'll have a balloon drop. They'll have Noon Year's Eve at the Bound Crossing branch, the Colin Ustick branch, the library at Hillcrest, the library at Collister, and of course at the downtown Boise Library. And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. We'll see you back here on Tuesday to stay in touch with the news. Between now and then, every day, including holidays, check out BoiseStatePublicRadio.org. Better yet, download the free Boise State Public Radio app. And for now, thanks for listening.
We could all use a little help navigating the news these days. The Consider This podcast wants to give you a hand. 6 days a week, we'll help you make sense of the day's biggest news story and what it means for you in less than 15 minutes. Listen now to the Consider This podcast from NPR.